So in the previous chapter, we saw Rox, Roger, Garp, Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom all attacking Emu at once, and it did nothing. Emu has like crazy regeneration powers and technically isn't even there. They're like possessing Saturn. And this led to Emu like stabbing Rox with their tendrils and manipulating them into Dami Reversi. And coming into this chapter, we're seeing that Rox is like fighting back against it. He is somewhat stopping the Dami Reversing, but only for so long, unfortunately, and we'll get into that. But he says something really interesting to Emu in the opening sequence here. He says, Davy D. Jones, that was the name of the previous king of the world. And Emu says, insolent fool, that wretch was never king. Not for a single moment thou hast no place in the fate that binds Mu and Davy. And Rox says, you been afraid for a long time, haven't ya? Afraid that one day someone's gonna inherit Davy's will and fulfill the promise. And when he says that, we see a panel of Eris and Teach, obviously alluding to the fact that Teach, aka Blackbeard, is going to inherit that will and fulfill the promise. Now, what is this promise? I don't know. Who knows? I mean, Luna PNR or Dawn and Dusk, they probably know. Clearly it relates to the Void Century. Something happened back then that led to a promise being made that gave birth to the D's and the Will of D, which led to this big crazy war between the D's, or I guess just the Great Kingdom and the allies of the D's, against Emu and the 20 kingdoms that'll eventually become the Celestial Dragons. And there was crazy devil fruit stuff going on, and one way or another, there was some promises that were made, poneglyphs were made, ancient weapons may or may not have been made, and Emu eventually won. Somehow. And also, let me give an updated take, or maybe even a correction, on the previous spoilers video. So, the initial spoilers that we got from this chapter on what Rox says in this sequence about, you afraid someone's gonna inherit Davy's will and fulfill the promise? It made it seem like that's what the Will of D was. And it still could be, but I don't think the Will of D literally means like Will of Davy. And I don't think that means that D, you know, the initial, means Davy, because, you know, Davy D. Jones. His name is Davy Jones. D probably means Dawn. We can go back to buying that stock. You can pump that coin before it gets rug pulled in about 6 years when we find out that D probably means something else and it might even be anticlimactic. But ultimately, Davy's will, the promise, or the Will of D, or the D's, I guess essentially just means overthrowing what Emu has done and then returning the world to one piece. Maybe. I don't know. Hey, also guys, real quick, let's try to get this video to 2,000 likes. All you gotta do is grab the phone, hit your thumb right there, and you'll be helping me out a lot. You don't even have to subscribe anymore. I just need some likes on the video. Thank you. But going further, Rox is like, I wonder who scares you most? Davy D. Jones? Joy Boy? And Emu's like, cease this babble. They shall never resurface so long as thou fades into oblivion. And it's like, Emu, why don't you just kill all the D's? Why do you have D's in the military? Why do you like still have the gum fruit in circulation? And also Joy Boy. That's like an audible silhouette for Oda here, because I'm assuming Joy Boy like isn't his name. Like, is his name Joy Boy? I mean, we know Davy D. Jones' name, so like what's Joy Boy's name? And I guess that's just a later reveal for Oda, which is fine. I know we kind of rag on these silhouettes and these long drawn out reveals, but to be honest, I like it. We don't have to rush to that stuff. I like having like these big crazy reveals every couple years or whatever, because it is fun, but at the same time, you know, it's a little annoying. We can feel both things about this. It's okay. But Emu winds up threatening to Rox that they're going to essentially take over Elbaf and use them as soldiers to rule the world or whatever. And that Harold himself is going to be a big pawn in that, because they say like a sovereign this pliable may never appear again. And this angers Rox further because, you know, Rox loves Harold. And he's like, stay away from Harold. He just wants peace. And I guess this further alludes to the fact that Emu does in fact Dami Reversi Harold, because at the beginning of this flashback, which was 14 years from the current time in the story, we see the moment where Harold is killed, or at least the beginning of his death, because his own guards are like stabbing him. And this eventually leads to like Loki killing him, or at least implied that Loki kills him. And when we saw the silhouette, we were like, oh, he looks like he's Dami Reversi. And given what happens later on in this chapter, it's very likely likely that Harold tells Loki to kill him. And that's probably how this flashback is going to end, I guess. Because once God Valley ends, I don't think we're just going to come straight back into like the current time in Elbaf. We still have to finish like the initial flashback with what happened to King Harold. Or at least I'm assuming that's what Oda is going to do. Because it would just be odd if he doesn't. But I don't know, knowing Oda, he might just do that. We'll see. But Imu winds up slamming rocks into the ground, and this is enough to just fully Dami Reverse him, I guess. And he winds up attacking Kaido and Big Mom, and he even attacks Whitebeard. And this attack winds up breaking one of the huge pillars on God Valley, and it just comes crashing down. And this made me remember that God Valley is said to not exist anymore. So whatever happens in the next chapter or two, God Valley is essentially going to be destroyed, either through Uranus or what Imu does, or between the battle of Rocks, Roger, and Garp, possibly. Maybe not completely vaporized, because I still think the theory that Thriller Bark is a part of God Valley is still pretty valid. Then we get to the real part of this chapter that kind of sucks, and it's Rocks straight up chasing down Eris and Teach, and he's about to kill them because, you know, that's what Imu wants. He doesn't wind up killing them because Kuma uses his paw teleportation on them. So we don't know where Kuma sent them. He can only send them someplace that he has been before, and considering that he's so young, I guess the possibilities are limited. I mean, he was born in the Sorbet Kingdom, I guess, so he could send them there. I mean, there's also a possibility that he's been to the Drum Kingdom before, because Blackbeard has some kind of connection to the Drum Kingdom. He like rampaged through there initially. That's actually the first time that we find out about Blackbeard, interestingly enough. We also know that Eris wanted to go to Lelusia for some reason. So I don't know if he could send them there. I don't know if he's been there. But Eris and Teach wind up surviving. I mean, we knew Teach was going to survive, but Eris surviving is pretty cool. I didn't want to see her die. And there's another interesting theory about her that I saw going around, and it's that the person on the Den Mushi that's talking to Loki, whose name is Shaggy in the Viz, or Mosha or Mosaka or whatever in other translations, that could be Eris somehow communicating with him. And maybe that's how Loki knows so much about rocks, because technically this flashback is being narrated to Luffy by Loki. That's just you know, it's just a theory. We don't really know who Shaggy or Moshika is at this point, but it would be pretty cool if it was Eris. Then we come to the end of the chapter, and Garp and Roger are like sticking around. And they're like, bring it on, rocks! And they're like staring down each other. And they realize that something has happened to him, clearly. And then Rocks suddenly starts using what is implied to be the voice of all things. And he says, Roger, Garp, please, kill me! So that's pretty cool. I mean, using the voice of all things. I mean, we weren't really sure about it in the spoilers earlier in this week, but in these panels, it's very clear that this is the voice of all things. Like, when you see a character go like this means the voice of all things is being used. And I guess we're going to get into that further on in the series. I guess it's just that advanced Conquerors hockey, or advanced observation hockey, or whatever. You can use the voice of all things, where you can just talk to anyone telepathically, even like animals. And then we see in the final page that the battle's about to start, and it says the climax of God Valley. So it seems like what Sengoku told us 6-7 years ago, 6-7, like the video, is actually coming to fruition. Roger and Garp are gonna kill Rocks, which is fine. I mean, I at least like that Rocks is cogent enough to be able to say, hey, kill me, with the voice of all things. But I still don't like the Dami Reverse stuff. It just puts a bad taste in your mouth, you know? And you don't have to agree with me on that. That's fine. If you love Dami Reverse, if you love Imu, if you love what's going on with Rocks, that's fine. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about all this. If you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.